Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Good cup of tea or whatever you're having. Let's talk about a few things today, shall we? Let's talk a little bit about healing. What a surprise. But I want to look at this from an interesting perspective. So we'll share a few thoughts and a few concepts. How's that? I remember growing up and being at times interested in books that dealt with unusual things, spiritual, magic, other kinds of concepts. And there was a lot of how-tos. That was the way our minds were focused back then. How to, go outside, when to do it. Go outside on a full moon, and dig so many holes in so many directions and walk this way and that way. There was a lot of doing. Now, we've talked about doing, but it was an interesting concept with that doing aspect. There's 1,000 little moments. 1,000 little moments that make one dance. And 1,000 little moments that make up one dance is a Zen quote. We mentioned that last time. But how do these 1,000 little moments flow into one dance? Well, there's a co-regulation. You can think of it as a symbiosis, as a co-regulation of what's going on, the interaction. It's not that each of the steps and the movements of the dance are independent. They can't be. Okay? Things happen just seemingly magically for no logical reason, for a reason that occurs on a much different level. There's a perfect intelligence and reason for so many things. I may have shared that a week or two ago I was in, Jillian and I were in, wait a minute. I can't think of the name of where we were, but we were there, believe me. And I was sitting quietly next to a plant. Just quietly next to a plant. We've all done that, sat quietly next to plants. But usually, quietly becomes the dominant. And as I'm sitting there quietly next to this plant, all of a sudden, I hear sound and I see a movement and I look. And I'm looking under the plant, around the plant. It's like, it was a big, visible movement. I thought, is there an animal? Is there an animal in that plant? I started looking. Nothing was there. What had happened was things that move so slowly that you hardly notice them, like a minute hand on a clock. You know it's moving. It goes from 15 minutes after to 16 minutes after to 17 minutes after an hour, but you don't sort of tend to visually detect the movement. And you know that plants, leaves on big green plants are opening, they're unfolding, but you don't generally tend to see them visually unless you're studying them with the help of some equipment. Well, what had happened was this leaf just started to open and it knocked into a leaf nearby it, opened into it, which caused that leaf to open. And it doesn't sound all that dramatic. And yet, I realized that I had just witnessed something which is the innate beauty of that which is, but and is going on around us all the time, but we don't generally pause or recognize the opportunity to witness it. It was a big moment. It was a really big moment. Sometimes the smallest things are the biggest moments. Sometimes the smallest things are the biggest moments. I don't really know how to express the power and the awe experience in witnessing that. What else is there for us to recognize when we talk about it, when it's pointed out, but we don't always cognizantly witness? Or that we witness and interpret in different ways. Healing. We look for the how to do healing. Everyone wants to know how to do things. Everyone wants to know how to do things. Science wants to know how to do things, but they restrict their studies to they restrict their knowing to that which occurs in time and space. Healing does not. Okay? But we try to analyze it and study it as if it does. And that's where the how-tos kind of mess up. We reward ourselves in time and space. Everything becomes constricted to that. What's your primary purpose? Healing is good. Healing is good. Is that your mission? Is your purpose to exemplify, use the word you want, God, love, infinite being? Do we sometimes get twisted and our purpose feels as if we're there to attribute it to any one specific faith, when really that becomes the constriction? We were in the car coming back from the airport, Jillian and I with our son, Sid, who was talking about how we want to attribute that which is and turn and use that to make our religion be the one right religion, our prophets to be the one right prophet. And really, if we allow ourselves to step back, we get to see that the teachings of the prophets, the beliefs, by any known name or not yet known name, are ultimately the same. It's just that the lessons as they are taught by the followers of those beliefs tend to falter. Not meaning so much wrong, but they tend to follow human desires. And the teachings tend to be without desire. What does this have to do with healing? Well, the how-tos tend to be sort of how we praise ourselves. Oh, I've done this healing really well. Here, I know the how-to. If there is a how-to, maybe that how is simply being. That how is ultimately love. When we are following the steps of healing, we're busy doing. And there's a distinction. So let's test this out a little bit. Let's, you and I, facilitate a healing. If you know a way to do it, if you know steps to facilitate the healings, use your steps. If you don't, we'll come up with a few for us right now. Let's say, open your hand, move it in a clockwise circle slowly, and feel. Okay? Good. Now let's say, do the same with your other hand in a counterclockwise circle. Or up and down. Maybe breathe to a certain count. Breathe into a count of 4. Hold it for a count of 6. Exhale for a count of 4 again. Pick any of these or any other that you know. And for the next 60 seconds, let's do, excuse the air quotes, a healing. Here we are. Any other steps that you know of or want to think of or create right now? Implement them if you'd like. Circles can be fast, circles can be slow. This is you doing healing any way you want right now. There's a reason, so play with this. Another 30 seconds. You can visualize a person that you're facilitating a healing for in person, or maybe lying down on a massage table in front of you, and continue this, your method, your technique, your doing. Make the technique finer, more precise. Really follow it. Really do it well. Good. Now, notice how you're feeling inside. Just notice how you're feeling. Not so much what you're feeling, but how do you feel? Good. Now, let's do the seemingly tiniest, let's make the seemingly tiniest little change. Ready? Just a little refinement. Let's tell a story first. So, if you are or have ever been in a relationship, you have probably at one point or another had an argument with your partner. I know that I can have an argument or a disagreement with Jillian. I can come up with a perfect response for why what I've done should be just okay. And she can come up for why it isn't. How many of you had discussions, call them arguments, disagreements, where you've countered the disagreement with something that made perfect sense, at least to you. And yet the disagreement, the argument, the interaction didn't feel a whole lot better, didn't go the way you thought it should. You're using all the intelligence, all the logic you can, all the technique that you can. Logically, if I share this, if I express this, it should be easier, it should be better. If I follow my healing technique, I move up and down, clockwise, counterclockwise, I play, I interact, I move over this area where I feel this going on and that area where I feel that going on. All the logic, the technique, the method. And yet, we're not feeling wonderful. Not feeling wonderful with the healing, not feeling wonderful with ourselves. Wouldn't you love to know that one tiny little shift that you can make? You're doing everything you can think of, which makes sense. And at the same time, guess what? That's the problem. You're doing everything that teacher and the other teacher and the books have told you to do. The healing does not seem to be bringing about something marvelous, whether it's what you think it should or whether it's not. You don't feel great about yourself. What's going on? Okay, so here's my Chicago hot dog. And I'm right around here where this little, I don't know, I think it's a tomato slice is, give or take. If you go inside, what's there? My heart, right? Right? Watch, you can feel it beat. Boom, 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 boom. It's your heart. We're so busy trying to do things correctly. Have we paused to take just a moment to connect? Sometimes when we find that connection during an argument or a conflict, when we can feel that person, we go from here, from doing everything that we think we should properly, to here, to that connection. It's not about saying the right things. It's how we're received and receiving ourselves in the interaction. It's the very same thing with healing. It's not about whether we're moving our hands correctly or not correctly. We've got the right crystals in our rings, the appropriate candles. It's not about the steps or the doing, and it never has been. It's about connection, which really is the recognition of the oneness. Take it all from here. Let it come to here. And then it does not matter if you're moving your hands the supposedly correct way or the incorrect way, because you realize that as one, as you and I being one with everyone and everything, there is no incorrect way, period. No matter what you've been told or by whom or how old or how many people believe or follow, there is no incorrect way of this movement, that movement. There's no wrong stone or right stone. There's no proper count or mantra versus an improper one. There is just the beingness, the recognition that we are one. Feel. Your words will come out differently with your partner. I know this. from my own experience. Your presence in facilitating a healer will be different because it will be presence. And no matter what the steps are that we are doing the best way possible, the doing is what is preventing us from presence. The best steps and procedures are actually preventing us from facilitating the healing. Being a healer is the height of fluidity. When you watch the ocean, is it taking steps? No. It's a movement of fluidity. Fluidity in your being, in your life. It allows for all things to change, to transform. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about gender or sexuality or thoughts or beliefs or diet or fluidity. Fluidity. So, visualize someone with whom you're facilitating a healing. And again, allow yourself to feel, to receive, but bring that person into your heart, into your recognition. No shoulds, no shouldn'ts. Don't try to work up emotions or tears. They're not real if you have to try to bring them up, if you have to look for them. They're not real. When do your tears come? Usually when you're trying not to cry. Because it comes up, because it is. And it comes up within you because you are. So, bring a feeling of someone into your heart, into your being. Challenge yourself. Bring a feeling of someone that you've been in conflict with, if you'd like. It's easy to bring someone into your heart that you love, that everything is warm and gushy. Who haven't you spoken to for weeks or maybe years? Remember the anger that you may have expressed with them, or the short-temperedness that they may have expressed with you, is really just a searching for, a seeking of that love anyway. So bring them into your heart, be present. You don't even need to have to know who or why. Feel. Feel is listening with a different sense. It's listening to your heart. It's listening to your essence. It's listening to the love that you are. Feel. See their face and their being relax. See yours. Feel. Feel. Even our disagreements are us seeking love, seeking the love that we know because we know that we are that love. You can let go of all the steps and all the forms of healing you may have read about, learned about, studied. come into being. Feel. Allow feeling to be that communication, that connection. Like talking to someone. Just with your essence, with your heart. It's like talking with someone, like sharing. And feel. And as you feel, you're in connection. As you're feeling with this, you're in connection. As you're feeling with this, you're in connection. Receive. Be. And you are receiving the healing that you are facilitating. You are the healing. You're no longer in a stance of trying or doing. Your fluidity, your essence. That's who and what you are. That's who and what we are. It may or may not be how we present ourselves. It may or may not be how we see ourselves. It may or may not be how we feel when we're trying to facilitate a healing for someone and we want it to be just perfect. We're trying. It's another word for trying, doing. Receive. And suddenly we are all one. And as one, in unity, there is strength, there is no threat. There's no concern about doing things right or wrong. We can't be there half the time and not the other half of the time. You can't be healing half-assed. You can't. You can't be being half-assed. You can't. Either you are the healing or you are approaching it half-assed with half presence. And the other half is a lot of thinking, gee, I think this is right, But see, healing does not take place in thought. It's not in time, it's not in space, it's not in thought. It's the presence that you are. It's the desire to come home. It's the knowing that there's a home. There's a longing for us to come home no matter who you are. Come home. Come home. You are a healer. Time to come home. And in that you realize you've never left. You've just gone for a little walk in the backyard. Or down the street. Breathe and be. Breathe and be. I'll remind you what one of the people who shares Wednesdays with us and Solomon Speaks, and also here. She goes by the wise Noralina. And she said, I'll meet you beyond all techniques. we can't help but meet there. Because it is there that there is no longer the illusion of separation. You are the healing. You are the healing. You are the healing. And as you allow yourself to find and feel that inspiration, that excitement that this recognition brings about within you, you find that you can't help but share this with others. This is part of how the sharing of healing spreads around the planet and throughout the universe. Not just because we're talking about it, but because that's all I can see. Look into someone's eyes. That's the light you see, whether your eyes are open or closed, physically. Whether you have the physical sense of sight or not, you have light, you are light, you see light. This is the healing. When we're looking for what to do next, how to do it, we're looking outside of ourselves. Recognize that you are light and you are facilitating healing. You are receiving healing. It's not just during a healing session. It's not just during this discussion or this sharing. It is throughout your hours, your minutes, your days. There are times when we've forgotten who we are, but that depends on who the we is. In this life, where we appear as representations of ourselves, as pixels, as icons, as avatars. When we forget the pixel, the avatar that we are, that we see in the mirror, that we see in each other, that's really when we remember who we are. Infinite, limitless being. When we've forgotten this earthly appearance for a moment, and then we come back, oh, where was I? You were and are everyone and everything and now. And it is here that all the apparent distinctions leave. It is here we find and recognize the healing that we are. And then we come back to this illusion of earthly pixel, avatar, etc. And we think this is reality because we call it reality. But we've come back just a little bit changed, healed. And a healing for one of us is a healing for all of us. Healing doesn't mean fixing something. Sometimes I'll hear someone say, oh, I'm fine, I don't need a healing. Healing is our continued recognition of ourselves, what appears to be an expansion, but it's really the revealing of the expanded being that we are. It's the revelation of our infinite being. So next time you're thinking, I'd like to facilitate a healing session. I want a self-healing. I want to facilitate a healing session for someone else. What should I do? Am I wearing the right color? Should I be wearing white? Should I be burning this color candle? Should I be following this steps? Are there certain incantations or words I should be saying? Are there certain angels or entities I should be calling in. Just remember who you are. All colors coming together is a perfect clear white light anyway. There's no reason to call one in. Calling in this archangel or that archangel or this entity or that one is just us not recognizing that we are one with everyone and everything, and we are complete. Calling in God is saying that we don't know that God, by whatever name you want, love, infinite being, Allah, whatever word you want for that infinite love and intelligence, calling it in is simply announcing that we don't recognize that we are that, and therefore God, love, and infinite presence is simply that, always presence. People would say, how do you facilitate these healings? And really, all I allow myself to do is observe with my eyes, often. In my beingness, my inner recognition, knowingness, yes. Feeling, that's me listening, that's another way we observe. Isn't that special? Isn't that unique? Maybe. Or, as Irini Jigkumi says from Greece, a story like any other unique story. And then we recognize again that we are all one. When I facilitate distance healing sessions, or sometimes we do some, Jillian and I, here in the Chicago area, all it is a recognition of the love that we feel in that presence, and you can't try to do it. You allow yourself to do it. The person doesn't need to be in front of your eyes. Know that you are sharing with someone who is you. And feel. You know, selfish is a word that's gotten a bad rap. Oh, that's so selfish. You shouldn't do that. No, actually, maybe yes. It's of self. I cannot tell you the beautiful reward of allowing yourself to listen, to feel, to hold that person that you may not even know. Challenge yourself here. Work with someone who you don't, as a personality, like. And yet, holding them in here, knowing that in human form, even as humans, we all share the same desires, which is really for love. Feel that. You'll find there are even people running for or running your governments that you may not like. And yet, one gift that they bring you is the opportunity to feel and to recognize that no matter the actions they take, they're looking for the same thing, same things that you and I are, love. It may not be the way that we would want them to go about it, or they would optimally want to go about it if they knew another way, but they're looking for love. They don't have to look so far. Nor do you. Find the love within you, the love that you are. And they won't have to look so far either. Until next week, my love. We'll see a lot of you in about half an hour as Jillian and I go on to Solomon Speaks. The link has been put in here a few times. Or you can go to the website, thereconnection.com or reconnectiveacademy.com, and scroll down towards the bottom where Jillian and I have links where we do our distance healing sessions, and right around there, I believe, is a link for RLC, Reconnective Life Community. Solomon Speaks events come on. You don't have to have read Solomon yet, but you'll want to after your first visit or so. And we'll talk, we'll share, we'll discuss. It is free every Wednesday, 30 minutes right after we finish the Instagram Live. See you then. Bye for now.